What's up, everybody? David Greene with the David Greene Show here on Real Talk Real Estate. Got another live video for you with a couple pretty important pieces of content. We have billionaire Ray Dalio. I believe he wrote the book Principles. He also wrote a book called The Changing World Order, which I thought was fascinating. Now, if you don't like to read, I know there's some of you out there, that's probably why you're listening to me right now. Good news is he has a video on YouTube and it's called The Changing World Order. And it's kind of like pictures that are being drawn as he explains a summation of the book itself. Highly recommend you go check that out if you want a better understanding of what is happening with the US and China. Now, if you don't want a better understanding, if you've already made up your mind and you're closed-minded and you just want to be mad, don't watch the video because it'll make you think. It might change your perspective and you'll become a little smarter. But if that's not you, if you don't want to just be mad, you want to learn, it'd be a good one to go watch. Ray Dalio talks a lot about the big picture of economics. And he kind of gets into, in this video, the heart of our country, like the attitudes of the people, as opposed to just the entitlement that we may feel, or sometimes you get so deep into your own customs and your own culture that you miss the forest for the trees. And in today's video that we're going to share, he gets into his concerns about what could happen for the economy. Now, warning here, I feel like he gets close to the point and then runs out of time, so he can't quite make it. So I'm going to provide some commentary of what I think he was trying to say. But this is something we should all be looking at because the consequences are potentially catastrophic. The changes that are happening are not guaranteed to work. They're not guaranteed to fail. It will depend largely if we as a people get on board and make the changes to create a healthy country, just like a person who is having health issues needs to start working out and changing their diet. And if they don't, they're going to die. If they do, they can extend their life and even improve the quality of their life so that they can do more things. We're kind of in that point right now as a country. And our housing market, which is why most of you are following me, is a really good indicator of the health of the country. We were on crystal meth for a long time. We printed tons of money. Housing exploded. There was jobs everywhere. It was easier than normal to be wealthy. And that's changed. Now we're sort of falling into like the withdrawals, if you want to say. So we're going to talk about this video and what we can do to prepare, what we should be watching out for, and how to try to prepare for this financially, because you don't know which direction things are going to go. As you guys are listening to this, feel free to leave me a comment. If you are watching this after it has already been recorded, well, thank you. Appreciate that. You should also leave a comment. I do my best to look at those and reply to everybody here. And then if you're interested in learning about Spartan League, I'm wearing the gear right here. I designed this logo myself, believe it or not, and I really like it. Same as the little helmet here. That is my faith-based mastermind for those that want a closer relationship with God and want to be a part of a community of people that are protecting them and serving them so that they can protect and serve as well. I'd love to have you there. Send me a DM on Instagram with the word faith or reach out to me and I'll tell you more about it myself. All right, let's get into this first video.
And joining me now is Ray Dalio, the founder of the world's largest hedge fund, Bridgewater Associates. He is also the author of the new book, How Countries Go Broke. It's out in June. Mr. Dalio, welcome to Meet the Press.
Thank you. Good to be here. Just call me Ray.
Okay. Well, Ray, I'll take you up on that. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate your perspective. As I just said, you did found the world's largest hedge fund. You have been in this field for more than 50 years. It's worth pointing out to our viewers, I think it's important to note you consider yourself to be apolitical, and you say that the tariff problem is a symptom of a much greater problem. What do you mean by that?
There's a financial problem. There's an imbalance problem. There are basically 5 big forces through history that drive everything. First, there's the money, credit, debt, economic cycle in which there's a building up of debt in a cyclical way that becomes too large, and we're going to have problems. We're going to have.
Again, you can learn more about what he's saying here if you watch the video, Changing World Order. I'll do my best to try to link to it in the description.
Have a government debt problem. Maybe we can get into this. The second big force through time is the internal conflict force. The left and the right, differences in wealth and values causing a conflict that we're seeing it changing our political order. So the first is changing our monetary order. The second is changing our political order internally. And then the third is the great world order, how countries deal with each other when there's a rising power challenging the existing power. And now we are going from multilateralism, which is largely an American world order type of thing, to a unilateral world order in which there's great conflict. And the other two factors all through history have been acts of nature, droughts, floods, and pandemics. And number four is technology changing. And how they are coming together are the main forces behind this. For example, there can't be imbalances anymore in that environment.
Do you think that President Trump's tariffs are exacerbating what you are describing, this complicated mix of challenges that the world is facing?
I think it's just a function of how well they're handled. You know, it's a reality that it's a desire to bring in tax revenue from that. It's a reality that we would like to build manufacturing and jobs here. This is a reality. That's how that's done, whether that's done in a practical way, whether that's done in a stable way, whether that's done with quality negotiation.
Really solid point here. Love his take on this. It's not about choosing sides. It's not about if you're for the tariffs or against the tariffs, because frankly, nobody cares how any of us feel about it. It is about watching how the execution of this goes. If it goes poorly, we could have a really big problem, which he's about to talk about. If it goes well, we could have an amazing world like what you hear the Trump administration say that they're aiming for.
Negotiations in which that's a mutual problem, or whether that's done in a chaotic and disruptive way that produces great conflict, makes all the difference in the world.
Based on what you're seeing right now, do you think that these tariffs are being carried out in a practical way or a chaotic way?
I think we'll see. So far, very disruptive. Right? And so we don't know what the numbers are. But that could be part of a process, right? It depends where we are at the end of the 90 days. Because what was put there is like throwing rocks into the production system. And those impacts would be enormous in terms of the efficiency of the whole world, great cost.
I want to ask you about something that's on a lot of people's minds, your predictions for the future. And I want to start with the R word. I know you think this is just a piece of it. Of course, I'm talking about a recession. Do you think it is likely that the United States will dip into a recession because of President Trump's tariffs?
I think that right now we are at a decision-making point and very close to a recession. And I'm worried about something worse than a recession if this isn't handled well. A recession is 2 negative quarters of GDP, and whether it goes slightly there, we always have those things. We have something that's much more profound. We have a breaking down of the monetary order. We are going to change the monetary order because we cannot spend the amounts of money, so we have that problem. And when we talk about the dollar and we talk about tariffs, we have that. We are having profound changes in our domestic order, how ruling is existing, and we're having profound changes in the world order. Such times are very much like the 1930s. I've studied history, and this repeats over and over again. So if you take tariffs, if you take debt, if you take the rising power challenging the existing power, if you take those factors and look at the factors, those changes in the orders, the systems, are very, very disruptive. How that's handled could produce something that is much worse than a recession, or it could be handled well. Let's take the debt situation.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, very quickly, because I want to be very specific about what you mean. You're saying worse than recession. You're saying this is reminiscent of the 1930s. We should tell our viewers you correctly predicted the 2008 financial crisis. What is your prediction for where the country is headed right now?
Right now, we're at a juncture. Let's take the budget. If the budget deficit can be reduced to 3% of GDP, it will be about 7% if things are not changed. If it could be reduced to about 3% of GDP, and these trade deficits and so on are managed in the right way, this could all be managed very well. I believe that members of Congress should take the pledge, what I call the 3% pledge, that in one way or another, that they will get that budget deficit down to that number. If they don't, We're going to have a supply-demand problem for debt at the same time as we have these other problems. And the results of that will be worse than a normal recession.
So, and just to follow up on that point, worse than a recession, you're talking about the 1930s. What specifically are you warning of? Are you saying that it could be as bad as a depression? What's your biggest fear?
The value of money. What is a storehold of wealth? That is a bond. In other words,
so this is something that's not being talked about as often. It's actually how much a dollar is worth. Ray has been very worried about this when he saw all the quantitative easing that was going on. Here's my 2 cents on this issue of inflation. You have people that have accepted the benefits of printing money, quantitative easing, which was like kind of creating money out of nowhere. It was selling treasuries to ourselves, basically, which pushed money into the economy. They've accepted the benefits of that. Cheap money, low interest rates, really good economy, money changing hands, high velocity of money, solid, easy way of life compared to other countries, without understanding the risk of it, which is that you're weakening the dollar by making too much of it. Then you have people that are very concerned about the long-term consequences of a weak dollar. This tends to be the wealthy people who are looking at how to maintain what we've got. So if you're someone who really likes that America is the strongest nation in the world, you're thinking defensively. How do we keep what we have? You care about the military budget. You care about the value of the dollar. You care about the dollar remaining the world's reserve currency. You care about the value of assets remaining high, like you want real estate to do well. And you care about things like GDP growth and job creation. These are all fundamentals. Like if you were a doctor looking at your patient, this is what you want to see in their blood to show that they're doing really good. If you're not someone who's wealthy, or you aren't pursuing wealth, you're probably thinking what's easier. These are going to be people that don't care about how their blood reads. What they care about is like, can I eat the cupcake when nobody's looking? So they're not going to care about the risk of the dollar becoming weak. They're going to keep putting pressure on politicians to print more dollars to make the economy look better so that they feel better. And Ray's getting into the danger of thinking that way right here.
One man's debt is another man's assets, bondholders. And so we're going to be in a situation where if that storehold of wealth is in jeopardy because there's too much supply and demand and so on, and we have a monetary inflation, we will have great disruptions. And that could be like the breakdown of the monetary system in 71. It could be like 2008. It's going to be very severe. I think it could be more severe than those if these other matters simultaneously occur. Imagine if we have a downturn politically and an international conflict.
What's worst case scenario that you're warning of? To be very specific, to be very
specific, the value of money, internal conflict that is not the normal democracy as we know it, and international conflict in a way that is highly disruptive to the world economy and could even be a military conflict, just as these breakdowns have occurred before. You know, we have a new order that began in 1945, a new monetary order and a new geopolitical order. And these go in cycles that can be measured. And I worry about the breakdown of that kind of an order, particularly since it doesn't need to happen, because there are certain things that could be done in which this is better, a better restructuring of these debts and actions taken.
So that takes me to my next question. You have this book, How Countries Go Broke, The Big Cycle. What is the solution here?
Well, there are a series of solutions, but let's take the most important.
And we have 1 minute.
1 minute. Okay. 3% of GDP, bring that deficit down. It can be done in a bipartisan way, the way it was done between 1991 and 98. I explained how that could be done, doing things together for the greater good. And then internationally on all of these issues, to use American strength, but to negotiate well, to lay out ways in which bad conflict and inefficient policies don't create great disruptions, but get us through this in an orderly way.
All right, Ray Dalio, thank you so much. Your book, how countries go broke, the big cycle. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right, that was the first video that we had. So far, no comments, so we don't have to stop and go over that. We can get into the next video, but this is pretty concerning. Ray has said on a few occasions he's not going to be in the public eye anymore. So if he's coming out to talk about this, it's not because he needs money. He doesn't need these book sales. The guy's a multi-billionaire. He's doing very well. He is concerned about the health of the country, and I think it's worth paying attention to this. Next video has to do with China's response to us. They've had a couple days, maybe a week now, to kind of figure out what they're going to do in response to us increasing tariffs on them, and they're fighting back.
Good evening. I'm John Yang. The developing trade war between the United States and China keeps ratcheting up. There are reports tonight China has suspended exports of rare earth minerals critical to automakers, semiconductor companies, and military contractors. And Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick said today that the electronics the administration exempted from reciprocal tariffs on Friday could be subject to different levies in the future. Earlier, I spoke with Katrina Northrup, China correspondent for The Washington Post. I asked her about the Chinese reaction to the initial exemption of those electronics.
They said that it was a good step. They're still criticizing the tariffs, but it does show a window of opportunity potentially for the two sides to talk. There's still a lot of problems and a lot of kind of barriers to get them together. But that exemption, I think, is going to be seen positively in Beijing.
What do the economists and analysts say about the effect on the Chinese economy of a trade war?
It's huge. The Chinese economy is not doing well. It's struggled to rebound from the pandemic. They've had a property sector crisis. They've had high youth unemployment. So they started at a bad baseline, and exports have been a really bright spot in the otherwise sluggish economy.
Katrina, you're in Taipei, like most Western journalists, because of the restrictions that Beijing has put on Western journalists. Is it possible to tell, though, how this is affecting or the reaction of the Chinese people to this?
It's hard to tell, but there's a lot of concern, like there is in the US, around a spiraling trade war. There are many supply chains built up in China around serving the American market.
You talk about China sort of looking or interested in a deal, but outwardly they've been very defiant. Help us understand the Chinese reaction in response to all of this.
Yeah, they've stood very firm. The people that we talk to say that they don't want to be seen as weak. They don't want to be seen as being pressured by Trump. And Trump seems to be waiting for Xi Jinping to call him. And Xi Jinping doesn't seem willing to make that call.
So this is kind of what's going on right now. There's a lot of this pressure that the leaders feel to not look weak to the rest of the world. So Trump's waiting for China to come. China feels like we don't have to come. What does this mean? It means you end up in a siege warfare. This was a type of warfare where you would be trying to take out a city behind walls. So you couldn't just walk in there and attack them. So you'd set your troops up around the city and you cut off the supplies going into the city. So you were stuck there, not able to get anything done for the kingdom while you were waiting for the people on the inside to starve to death and then come out and surrender. It's kind of a stalemate situation as you see who is going to give in first. Are the people inside the city going to run out of food and surrender? Or is the army going to say, hey, we have nothing better to do. We got to get out of here. We're tired of the rain. We're tired of other things we need to get done. We're going to move on. You kind of have that going on with Trump and Xi Jinping right now. My guess would be as the economic devastation starts to occur between both sides, America is going to be paying more for items. Prices are going to go up. That's going to be very unpopular amongst our own population with the president, especially if they're not looking at the big picture. They're just looking at how it affects them. The same thing's probably going to be even worse in China. The Chinese population is going to be very upset about the fact they're all losing their jobs. Their factories are shutting down. I don't know what they're going to do. This is how their entire economy is set up. It's like a football team that has one way to win is they run the ball really good, and you found a way to take out their running back, and they just don't have another method. I don't know how much the political climate of China being a communist country is going to affect this, where the people don't really have a choice. They have to do whatever their leadership says, but it may be a long process before China comes to the negotiating table and China is willing to make concessions if they are at all, which means we should be paying attention to this, following the news, and not expecting it to get fixed right away. I'm preparing for a form of siege warfare between President Trump and the president of China.
So we're waiting to see what happens or whether we continue to escalate. I don't think that's out of the question. I think we could see more escalation before we see any type of negotiation.
And is China prepared for that escalation? Do they have plans in their back pocket, as it were?
Yeah, China has been preparing for a trade war with the US since the first trade war with the US in the first Trump term. And there's been a huge push to kind of create a more independent economy. At the same time, they've also developed this whole suite of tools to push back against Washington. So it's not only tariffs that they have in their pocket, they have export controls, which they've increasingly used. They have sanctions. They can go after specific US companies. On Friday, Beijing said that they would not increase tariffs further from the 125% that they are on right now. But that doesn't mean that they...
It's very interesting. I wonder if they said that they won't increase the tariffs further as a way of trying to set the tone so that we wouldn't increase them more on them. And if we do increase it more on them after they said they would increase them on us, it makes us look like a bully.
Won't use these other tools like export controls to go after Washington.
What's this doing to the overall relationship between these two countries?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of concern around this escalating beyond just a trade war.
This is the part that has me the most concerned.
This could very easily move into a broader spiraling tension over things like Taiwan or South China Sea or other issues. And so economic and trade ties have long been a stabilizing force in the relationship. It's brought the two countries together. It's forced them to talk. And right now we're closer to economic decoupling than we ever have been. And many people are concerned that the two leaders won't be able to get the relationship back on the right track.
Katrina Northrup of the Washington Post, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Breaking news.
All right, interesting video there. I thought that was actually well said. Calm heads, objective information, and some pretty insightful commentary on the direction things could be heading, which is where it's kind of solidifying my perspective that I'm not expecting this to be a really quick solution. I think it's going to be a quick solution with the majority of the 75 countries that came to us to negotiate, and we're going to get that figured out, and then we'll know what type of stuff we're going to have to manufacture here and what we're not. But the other things, or the other countries that are not coming to negotiate, I'd expect this to get worse before it gets better. Michael in Haiti said, for people who have never traveled to China, China is a face nation, hollow and only concerned about their image. China is dumping all its cheap goods in Asia. So this would be the stuff they've already manufactured that they have to move. And the Philippines is the dumping ground for all the terrible quality of Chinese items. That's saying something, because most of us in America don't think that the quality of Chinese items that we get is very good either. So if we get their good stuff, it doesn't say much about their manufacturing. All right, let's check out the next video.
China versus the U.S. on the world stage as Beijing tries to find workarounds for President Trump's new tariffs. Greg Palcott has more from London.
As the trade war with Beijing escalates, Chinese President Xi Jinping is on a 5-day tariff tour of Southeast Asia, one of the areas hardest hit by President Trump's new tariffs. As the U.S. tries to isolate China, Xi is turning to his neighbors, calling for stronger trade ties and signing dozens of economic agreements.
We will continue to expand the circle of trade friends to inject more stability and positive energy into the world economy.
But President Trump says the trip is intended to, quote, screw the U.S., and he's doubling down on his trade policy, claiming it's all about leveling the playing field after years of losses.
We lost with China over the Biden years trillions of dollars on trade. Trillions of dollars.
Xi is also pushing East Asia to oppose what he calls unilateral bullying from the U.S. But a number of America's allies in the region, including Japan and Taiwan, are now using the 90-day tariff pause to send delegations to Washington, hoping to cut a new deal with the White House that will provide tariff relief while also encouraging bilateral trade.
We will request a review of the tariff measures while building a relationship of trust.
That time can be used productively to engage with Taiwan.
Xi's tariff tour started in Vietnam. He'll also head to Cambodia and Malaysia, all major trading partners of both the United States and China. In London, Greg.
All right. So you see China's already kind of thinking, what can we do here without playing nice with America, which kind of shows you where their motives are. They are not intending to be our trade partner. They want to be our competition. All right. Let's see what else we got. By the way, let me know in the comments as you're watching this if this has been filling your social media feeds. The Chinese companies that are threatening to start selling knockoff American products without actually paying the American companies. If you haven't heard, one of the big complaints about the Chinese in trade is that they steal intellectual property from American companies.
Hermes boutique will cost you 38,000 USD. But what is the real cost out of the factory? Today, I'm going to break it down in front of you, step by step. First thing first, Hermes only use the leathers from the 3 top-level suppliers. One piece of Togo leather will cost 450 USD. The thread is also the best top level. For each bag, the cost is 25 USD. For one piece of bag, the hardware will cost 150 USD. Edge oil. For each bag, it will cost 50 USD. The interior lining for each bag, the cost will be 100 USD. And then the cost of human resource. To finish one bag, the human resource cost will be 600 USD. The total cost will be 1,000 400 USD for one Birkin out of factory. But why Hermes will charge you 38,000 USD for one bag? That's because more than 90% of the price is paid for its logo. But if you do not care about the logo, you just want the same quality, same material, you can just buy from us.
So same product from the same factory, made from the same materials, with just the brand logo missing.
How do you feel about this? By the way, sorry for the sound not being on earlier, got that fixed. What do we think about the factories that have been making American products saying, hey, we know how to make it. We've been doing it for you because you suckers basically sent your whole business over here and you gave us all the power so you could get things cheap. Now, we'll just leave off your swoosh. We'll just leave off your logo. We'll make this same exact thing and we'll sell it to your people. And we can sell it so cheap that even with the tariffs, the American companies can't compete. Is this China fighting dirty? Is this American companies ripping us off, charging us way too much? Does this show a ridiculously shallow value system where a stupid logo makes us think that something is cool? Should we be ashamed about how ridiculous we've become? I'm curious. Let me know in the comments, whose side are you on in this dirty war? Dirty.
What's the point of these videos? They're trying to humiliate Western brands, to show the world that their products are made in China and to expose how much they overcharge their customers. Now, we cannot vouch for the accuracy of their claims. After all, they are coming from China. It is known for copying, so many of these products could just be knockoffs. And China is well known for that. And yet this campaign has struck a chord. Even Chinese diplomats have jumped in. One of them took aim at Caroline Leavitt. She is the White House press secretary. She is being mocked for a dress that she wore. This Chinese diplomat says the dress was made in China. This is what he wrote on X. Accusing China is business, buying China is life. So the attacks are coming from all sides, not just on social media, but on American companies too. They are being punished for Trump's trade war. The latest victim is Boeing. Beijing has issued a diktat to all Chinese airplanes. Stop taking deliveries of Boeing planes. That's what China has told its airlines. Now, this is a setback for Boeing. China's aviation market is expanding rapidly. In the next 20 years, China will account for 20% of the global aircraft demand.
Solid point here. I didn't think about this. Apparently, Boeing makes airlines or airplanes for airlines all across the world. And now not only are they tariffing it like they probably always have been, but they're actually telling their trade partners, hey, don't buy Boeing, which could hurt Boeing quite significantly. Also, this does support the belief I had in previous videos that I put out that this trade war will probably cause countries to take sides, which will probably be like a messy divorce where you got to only talk to one side or the other.
Now, Boeing had managed to get a foothold. It had dozens of orders from Chinese airlines. Air China had ordered 45 Boeing planes. China Eastern Airlines, another 53 planes. And China Southern Airlines, 81 planes. These are China's top 3 airlines. Now, Boeing could be losing them as customers. China is also weaponizing supplies of rare earths. Their exports to the US have been suspended. There's a whole list of metals which have been banned, at least 6 of them. At least 6 of them, in fact, are rare earth metals. China won't be sending them to the US anymore. Beijing has also banned rare earth magnets. Again, this is quite significant because a range of industries use these magnets, from automobiles to drones and robots, and even missile assembly. They all need rare earth magnets. But China has halted their shipments for now. Meanwhile, President Xi Jinping is traveling. He's on a tour of Southeast Asia. His first stop is Vietnam. He arrived in Hanoi last night. Xi Jinping has urged Vietnam's leaders to resist what he called unilateral bullying. That's a clear dig at Donald Trump and his tariff plans. At the same time, President Xi is pitching China as a stable partner. He's offering the best of globalization to these countries. He's promising open markets, stronger bilateral ties, and a unified response to American pressure.
面对外部的不确定性， In the face of external uncertainties, China will insist on joining hands rather than throwing punches, tearing down walls instead of building barriers, connecting instead of decoupling. We will continue to expand the circle of trade friends, become a stronger magnet for investment, develop with high quality and open to the outside world at a high level, to inject more stability and positive energy into the world economy.
We are not afraid of trouble. That's what Xi Jinping has said in the past. He said it just a few days back. As Trump was escalating tariffs on China every day, Xi struck a defiant note. Then over the weekend, the US did a U-turn. It exempted most electronics from the high tariffs. This came as a relief to China. But China did not reciprocate in easing off the pressure. It wants to keep the fight going now, and Donald Trump says he is not surprised. Listen to this.
I don't blame China. I don't blame Vietnam. I see their meeting today. Is that wonderful? It's a lovely meeting. They're meeting, like, trying to figure out, how do we screw the United States of America?
Trump started this fight with China. Xi Jinping is in no hurry to end it. He's playing the long game. He looks set for a prolonged clash with the US, and he's taking the fight to all fronts: trade, technology.
Let me know in the comments, do you believe that Trump started the fight with China, or did China start the fight with us by putting tariffs on us that we didn't have on them? Not sure, but let me know in the comments. Do you think that this is biased reporting, or do you think that this is accurate?
And now TikTok. We'll be tracking this for you.
Greeting you with aloha and namaste.
I love India. Presence, occupation of a territory by another country pertains to India. What we saw in Kashmir.
How do you see Trump's America?
Yes, the current administration behaves differently from the previous administration.
Are you saying that there are foreign powers who are trying to bring down the current government in Syria?
Exactly. Iran, maybe Russia.
Prime Minister Modi committed to South-South, corporations.
Not over 50%.
Is Ukraine prepared to pay the price for that peace?
No compromises at the cost of territorial integrity and sovereignty.
All right, there we have it, folks. China is fighting back. Johnny says, I import from the Chinese. I import from the Chinese and have been fighting dirty for years. Michael and Haiti say, like O'Leary said, China has been a problem for years. What I don't hear in the news as often right now is how this is going to affect real estate prices. This was a really hot button topic. Hardly anybody's talking about it right now. I would say if you're worried, though, about mortgage rates going up, can't predict it. You never can. They probably will be, because China's selling a lot of their treasuries, and I think they're pressuring Japan to do the same, and probably their trading partners. And so there's going to be a lot of selling of U.S. treasuries, which, long story short, leads to higher mortgage rates. So if you've been on the fence about a refinance and you're like, oh, I don't really know, should I wait? They could go down. It looks more likely that they're going to go up than go down. So if that's something that you're at, we want to help you. TheOneBrokerage is my mortgage company. We do a great job saving our clients money, getting them great service, great rates, a great experience, and most importantly, a knowledgeable loan officer that can help go through your options and figure out what we can do to get your rate as low as humanly possible. So you can go ahead and send us an email at intake@TheOneBrokerage. You can also connect with me directly on Instagram. So if you're watching this and you're like, hey, I kind of like this, I like his style, I'd like to talk to David, just DM me. Send me an DM as a DM. I'm at David Greene 24. You can also follow my mastermind. It's called Spartan League, and it's at Spartan_faith. You could follow us at TheOneBrokerage on Instagram as well. Let me know what your plans are for wealth building, for real estate, what you're concerned about, and how your 2025 is shaping out. You can also leave a comment here. Let me know what you thought about the video, and subscribe to get notified when I go live tomorrow. Thanks, everybody, for watching this. Thanks for supporting the show. I appreciate all of you. I will see you soon.